Hello friends, welcome to another tutorial, and today we are going to understand and learn about another very important topic, which is direct and inverse proportion. Okay, now before going to actually dig down into the topic, let's try to understand in at very ground level what's a direct proportion and what's an indirect proportion. Okay, let's start with direct proportion. Okay, now let's suppose I say you, if you work 2 hours, then you will possibly get 5 points in your GCSEs, right? Again, if you study for 2 hours, see, this is prediction. We can't kind of affirm this statement. It's just a kind of concrete. It's not a concrete statement. Okay, it's just an example. So what I'm trying to explain is, let's suppose you studied for 2 hours. You are studying 2 hours every day for your GCSE, so you can approximately score 5 in your GCSE in math. Okay. Now, if I say you, if you study for 3 hours, there is a high probability or possibility that you may score 6 in your math examination, right? Now, again, if I tell you that if you study for maybe 4 hours every day from today until your math examination 2024, then you may get or possibly can get 7 points. Okay, now what does that mean? That means is, as you increase your amount of hours spent for studying math, your score increases, right? So means if you increase any variable or any entity, then the dependent variable or dependent entity, that will also increase. Okay, now this is called a direct proportion. Okay, now remember, direct proportion does not always mean that it is always have to be increased. Okay, now if you study for, now if we come in the reverse direction, let's say if you study for 7 hours, if you study for 5 hours, you will get 7 point. If you study for 4 hours, you may get 6. 5 hours, 4. So what you are seeing is, or what you're observing here is that as you are depleting your amount of time spent every day, your probability of getting the probability or your estimated score also reduces. Means whenever you are increasing your amount of hours spent every day, you are increasing your estimated score. Whenever you are decreasing your amount of hours spent every day, you are depleting your score, and that is called as direct proportion. Means whenever you are trying to increase any entity, its dependent variable or entity increases. If you are trying to reduce any entity, its dependent variable also reduces, and that is what it is called as direct proportion. Okay, now if you can see on the screen, you will find that directly a statement T is directly proportion to R can be written using the proportionality symbol, which is given, which is shown. Okay, now see, is just an example we have taken, T and R. Okay, it can be anything. As I told you, T can be your time you spent for your studies in GCSE, and R can be estimated score or estimated rate. Okay, so T is directly proportion, that symbol in between T and R is called proportion. Okay, now if you want to remove that proportionality symbol, you have to write any constant which is K. Okay, now see, you can't see proportionality in mathematical equations. You cannot equate a proportionality sign, okay, because you don't know what is that. Okay, so you need a operator. Either it can be equals, it can be multiply, divide, to form an equation. Okay, there is, to solve an algebraic equation, to solve any equation, there is no operator called proportionality. Okay, so you have to get rid of that. So to get rid of that, what we are trying to do is that we are trying to get rid of that proportionality with an equal and putting a constant K over there. Okay, now K is basically a constant, it's a number. Okay, now what does that mean? That means T will be equals to some value of R. Okay, why? Because as I explained you, okay, now if we go into the I will go into the whiteboard and kind of explain you. Let's suppose you have T is directly proportional to R, or let's say S score. Means if you increase the time, your score increase. If you have increased, let's say you have time was 2 hours, your score was 5. Time say 3 hours, your score was 6. 4 hours, your score was 7. 5 hours, your score was 8, and 6 hours, your score was 9. Okay, now if you see that T is directly proportional to S. Okay, now if you see this value is not equal, means 2 is not equals to 5, your 3 is not equals to 6. Okay, now if you want to make it equal, means if this T, if you want to make it equals, you have to write some constant K. Okay, which means if you want to make 2 equals to 5, you have to times it with some constant K, so that this value becomes, this LHS, left hand side, becomes equals to right hand side. Alright, so that's the reason whenever we are trying to get rid of this proportionality, we are replacing it with an equal and a constant. Okay, so that's the idea of direct proportion. Okay, so if T is directly proportional to S, then T is equals to Ks, where K is a variable, constant. And we have already seen that why this is a constant, why we need a constant. All right, got it? Okay, good. Now let's move ahead. So k is a constant, and as you can see, write the proportionality relationship, convert the equation into constant of constant of proportionality, and so on. So this is basically what it is called as direct proportion. Okay, now if you see, let's quickly see a question, and the question says that a value E is directly proportional to P. Okay, E is directly proportional to P. E is 20 and P is 10. Find the equation relating E and P. So what the question says that E is directly proportional to P, means E, the first step, E is directly proportional to P. We write it as E, that proportionality sign, and P. Okay, now if you want to get rid of that proportionality, you need to replace it with equals and a value which is K, which is constant. Okay, now E, replace E with 20 and P with 10, so you will get an equation, a linear equation, and rearranging that equation, you will get the value of K as 2. Okay, now you need to do what? You need to find out an equation which only have E and P. Remember, you need to get an equation which only have E and P. Okay, it cannot have any other variable. Okay, it should have only E and P. So what you're gonna do, since in the step 2 you got equals to KP, and in the step 3 you got K equals 2, just replace K with 2. Okay, now if you replace K with 2, you will get a final equation as E equals 2P. All right, and that's the final equation which relates E and P. Okay, and that will show you a question based on direct proportional. Okay, now let's move on to the indirect proportion. Okay, now what is an indirect proportion? Okay, now let's see this example. Okay, suppose you want to go from point A to point B. Okay, let's see with an example. So suppose, as if you can see my whiteboard, suppose there is a point A and there is a point B. Right now, if you want to go from point A to point B, suppose, let's say this is 2 miles. Okay, now if you want to go from point A to point B, okay, now if you are traveling or walking at 3 miles per hour, okay, then your time will be what? Time equals distance over speed. Okay, now if you are walking at a speed of 3 miles per hour, then what will be your time taken? Your time will be 3 over 3 divided by 2, which is 1.5. You will take 1.5 hours. Okay, now if you increase your speed by 5 miles per hour, then your time taken will be what? Your time taken will be 5 divided by 2, which is 2 divided no, this is 2 over distance 2 over 3. So 2 over 3, which is 0.66 hours. Okay, right? Now if you are traveling at 5 miles per hour, then your time taken will be 0.4 hours. Okay, now if you calculate it further, what you will observe is, as you are increasing your speed to cover the distance between A and B, your time taken is getting diminished. Your time taken is reduced. Okay, and that is called as inverse proportion. So what is an inverse proportion? Inverse proportion means if you are increasing any entity or any quantity, then its corresponding dependent entity or quantity changes in a reverse order. If it is increasing, if this increases, this decreases. If this decreases, this increases, and that is called an inverse proportion or inverse proportionality. All right, so this is the basic and major understanding of inverse proportion. So as you can see, inverse proportion is given by 1 over any that dependent variable. So let's say if I say you if I say you B is inversely proportional to M, then B is inverse sine 1 over M. Okay, now as we have seen, if you remove the inverse sign or operator, you have to replace it with equals and with a constant. Okay, so it will turn out to be B equals K over M. Okay, and that is what is called as inverse proportion. Okay, now let's move on. Let's see a question. This question says, as you can see on the screen, if G is inversely proportion to W, and when the value of G is given 4 and W is 9, then form an equation relating G and to W. Same question as we have seen for the direct proportion. Only difference is it's an inverse proportion, means in the step 1 you will find that G is inversely proportion to 1 over W. Okay, now in step 2 you can see that proportionality sign or operator between G and 1 over W is changed with equals. Okay, now equal and K, so G is equals to K over W, right? So G is equals to K over W. Now simply what you need to do is replace G as 4 and W as 9 to find the value of K. So you will get the value of K as if you pause it and calculate, you will get the value of K as 36. Just replace the K as 36 in step 2, so you will get G equals 36 over W, and that's your final answer, and that's the relation between G and W. Right? So this is the understanding of direct and inverse proportion. All right, now we will move on to some question. Okay, I have figured out some question which are based on direct and inverse proportion. Okay, now pause the video and try to solve it. The question which you see on the screen. Right, let's see the question. Okay, now what the question says is the cost of a circular table is directly proportion to the square of the radius of the circular table, with radius is this and cost is this. What is the cost of a circular table when the radius is this? Okay, now let's see. For the first thing, it says that you have to use direct proportionality. Okay, now the cost, let's say the cost is directly proportional to square of the radius. So square of the radius, this is what the question, the given condition. Okay, you have to be careful while you are reading the question. Okay, the cost of the table is directly proportion to the square of the radius. Okay, now as we have learned, if you want to get rid of this proportionality sign or operator, you need to replace it with equals, a constant k, and keep the other variable as same. Now when the radius is this, the cost is this. Just substitute the value. 50 equals k times 40 square. Just rearranging the equation, first let's expand it, so you will get 1600 times k. Rearranging the equation, so you get k equals 50 over 1600, or simplifying it to get 5 over 160. And if you further simplify it, you will get 1 if you further simplify it, you will get 1 over 32. So the value of k is 1 over 32. Now the question is still not over. Okay, what we need to do is that we need to find out the cost of the circular table with radius this. Okay, now what we need to find out is we need to find out the cost this. So we have to use this equation again. Okay, now what you will gonna do is, you got the value of k, just sub the value of k here and radius is 60 to find out the cost. Okay, so the cost is equals to 1 over 32 times 60 times 60. Okay, so you simply, what you need to do is solve this question, solve this equation, and you need to see how much you are getting. So the cost you will get is 112.5 pounds. Okay, if you just need to solve it, 60 times 60 is 3600 divided by 32. It's a fraction multiplication. So for a fraction multiplication, numerator will times with numerator and denominator will times with denominator. 60 basically is nothing but 60 over 1. So 1 times 60 times 60 and over 32 times 1 times 1. So if it's a non-calculator paper, then you have to do it like this. So 1 times 60 times 60 is 3600 divided by 32, which will yield you this. That will be your answer. Okay, right, good. Move on to the next question. All right. Right, so question says that the time taken T seconds that it takes a water heater to boil water is inversely proportional to power of the heater. So let's take the first condition. Time is inversely proportional to power. So time is equals to K over P. Okay. Now, when power equals to 2000 watts, the time is 252 seconds. Okay. Simply replace power and time to find out K. So 252 equals K over 2000. Simply you need to rearrange the equation and find the value of K. Okay, so what you will get? You will get K as 504,000. Now next is find the time taken it takes to boil when the power is this much. You need to use this equation, sub the value of K here and power here and find out time. So time equals 504 over 800, and that's it. So you will get time equals 630 seconds, and that will give you the answer, right? Okay, good. Right, let's move on to the next question. Okay, now the question says that h varies direct to the cube of c. Okay, now h again is directly proportional to cube of c. Okay, so h is equals to kc cubed. Okay, simply substitute the value of h as 40 equals k8 or 8k, rearranging the equation, so k equals 5. Now express h in terms of c. Simply in this equation sub the value of k as 5, so you will get h equals 5c cubed. So write it as 5c cubed, and simply you get 3 marks straight away. Next, B, find the value of h when c is 5. Simply sub the value of c as 5, so h will be 5 times 5 cubed. So this will become 5 raised to the power 4. So that will be 625. Alright, now next find the value of c when h is 5000. Simply you again sub the value of h as 5000 equals 5c cubed. Now rearranging the equation, c cubed equals 1000. Now remember, this is c cube equals to 1000. So if you want to find out c, you need to take a cube root of c. So cube root of 1000 will be 10. So our answer for c is 10. Alright, so these kind of question you will gonna see in your test. Okay, let's see the next question. So a is directly proportional to square root of c. A is directly proportional to square root of c, and so a will be kc. Okay, let's write this first. Now w is inversely proportion to 1 over a cubed. So then it means W equals, let's say, M over a cubed. Okay, right. Now when C is this and A is this, okay, so you have C, you have A, you can find out K. Simply substitute it. C is 49 and A is 35. 35 equals K times 49. So K is equals to 35 over 49. Just rearranging the equation. So 35 over 49 can be further simplified as 5 over 7. Now for the second part, when A is 2, W is 16, simply sub the value of A and W. So W is 16 equals M, and 2 times 2 times 2, let's directly write it as 8. So M will be equals to what? 16 times 8. So M is equals to 128. We got both the constant. Find the value of W when C is 4. Okay, what you need to find out is, you need to find out W when C is 4. Okay, this is a bit tricky question. So first, for that, you need to find out the value of A when C was 4. So first you need this equation. Okay, so what you need to do is that K was 5 over 7 and C is 4. So find out A. So A is equals to 5 over 7 times 4. So that is 20 over 7. So you got A as 20 over 7. Now what you need to do is that take this value of A and substitute in the equation of W. Okay, now you take this value of A, sub here, you take this value of M and sub here and find out the value of W. Okay, which is pretty much straightforward. So W equals 128, which is M, divided by 20 over 7 and cubed. Okay, now simply what you need to do is that so you can write it as 128 over 8,000 and over 7 cubed is 343. Now if you want to say 343, so this is on the, this whole fraction is on denominator. So if you want to, you can flip it. So that 343 will go on the numerator and that 8,000 will be on the denominator. Okay, so our answer will be what? 128 times 343, which is 43,904 divided by 8,000. So our answer, W, value of W is 5.488. Okay, this was a bit tricky question. So there are two equations was given. So what we first did is that we find out the value of A from the first equation, substitute that value on the second equation to find out the value of W. Okay, good. Now moving on to the next question. Okay, so the next question says that the number of days D to complete research is inversely proportional to the number of researchers R who are working. So D is inversely proportional to R means D is equals to K, implies that D equals to K over R. The researcher takes 125 days to complete is 16 people work on it. Okay, now simply 125 days and 16, sub the value of days and researcher, so we will get the K. So K implies that K is equals to D times R, so that is what, 125 times 16, that is 2000. So we have got the value of K as 2000. So for how many people are needed to complete the research? In 40 days. So you just have to sub the value of day as 40 equals 2000 divided by R. You need to find out R, which is researchers. Okay, now this is rearranging, simply rearranging. So R will be what? 2000 divided by 40, which is 50 researcher. So basically you will need 50 researcher if you want to finish the work in 40 days. All right, guys. Right, so this brings an end of almost all the types of possible question which you may see in your test, and this also brings to an end of the direct and inverse proportion. If you have any query regarding this topic or any other topic, then don't hesitate to reach me out in the below email or phone number, and I will be happy to discuss and take that forward. All right, let's wrap up the lesson for today, and happy learning. We will see you in the next tutorial with another topic. Happy learning and goodbye.